Considering the videos I've already made, I seem to be a bit of a PlayStation fanboy, so why didn't I play Astro Bot as soon as it released? Well, that's the curse of being a challenge runner. If I was going to play it, it had to be under a strict arbitrary rule for the purpose of making a video. But Astro Bot is such a modern, well-made game, surely there's no glitches or skips or out of bounds in this game. Yeah, that brings me to this challenge. Staying on brand with my previous platformer challenge runs like Spyro and Rayman, can you beat Astro Bot without hovering? Let's find out. Here are the rules. But first, look at this cute little guy. Doesn't he just make you want to buy things with his face on it? But all his best merchandise are on the Japanese shopping sites. I don't want to have to sign up to a bunch of Japanese websites and then figure out how I'm going to input Japanese addresses. But then I learned you don't have to do any of that thanks to this video's sponsor, Zen Market. Zen Market is an online shopping service that allows you to buy and ship products directly from over 10,000 Japanese shopping websites. You can buy almost anything from any Japanese online store as long as it's eligible for international shipping. You simply search for an item, or you can copy a link from an item on a Japanese shopping website and paste it directly into Zen Market's search bar. Once you've paid for the item through Zen Market, they will then buy the items from the Japanese sites for you and have it delivered to their warehouse within 2 or 3 days. Then you can pay for shipping and they will deliver the items to your address in a week or 2. They also provide a 60-day free storage period so you can keep shopping before committing to the delivery. This means that if I buy an Astro Bot plush from Rakuten, but then later I decide I want to buy an Astro Bot birthday banner from Mercari, as long as I purchase both of these within 60 days, I can get them both delivered together to save on fees. You can even earn balance credits and up to 1% cashback with their loyalty program, and they provide great customer service in 19 languages, which might explain why they have over 2 million users worldwide. If you sign up to Zen Market using my link in the description or the pinned comment and use the promo code NG+, then you will receive 1,000 Zen points as a sign-up bonus. This is equivalent to 1,000 yen off international shipping fees. So to make sure you don't miss out, once again use my link in the description and sign up with the promo code NG+ for 1,000 yen points. Thank you Zen Market for sponsoring this video. Back to the rules. Rule number 1, we cannot use Astro Bot's laser feet to hover. Rule number 2, we are aiming for the maximum possible completion percentage. And rule number 3, once we defeat the space bully Nebulax, we win! First things first, this is a hover. Astro Bot fires lasers out of his feet to stay suspended in the air for a few seconds. Not only that, but the hover also provides us with a bit of extra height after a jump. And the lasers themselves can be used as an attack too. The tutorial is short and sweet. It wants us to hover over this gap, but if we punch in mid-air, we get a bit of extra hang time as we spin. Using that, we can clear this gap no problem. The first galaxy is called the Gorilla System, and the first level in that is called Sky Garden. Since this is the easiest level in the game, there's not much to talk about in regards to a hoverless run. So instead, we'll talk about what is required for 100% completion. Each level has several bots to rescue and some puzzle pieces to find. Some levels also have a hidden alternate exit. If we find one, this also unlocks a new optional level. Sky Garden has 7 bots and 3 puzzle pieces, most of which are on the beaten path. We also see these electrified enemies called Volties, and the only way we can directly defeat Volties is with our laser feet, because if we try to punch them, we'll get electrocuted and die. So we will mostly be avoiding these. I will be skimming over each and every level, but I will make sure to mention anything interesting as we go. We also find some logs, and the only way to move these is by cutting them with our lasers. This doesn't matter here since cutting these logs does not impact our completion percentage, but keep this in mind for later. Halfway through this level, we are given the ability to inflate and float around. With this ability at our disposal, no part of this level is out of reach, but do note that these power-ups can only be used in the levels that we find them in. With that, we have beaten Sky Garden with 100% completion. Level 2 is Creamy Canyon. There are 7 bots and 3 puzzle pieces again, and in this level there is an alternate exit. The bots are a bit more hidden this time around, like this one on the lower ledge to the side. This is where I discovered that you can't walk over edges in this game, no matter how hard you try. This will be relevant later. There is a pig bot enemy that we can swing around to break all the ice. We can also throw the pig backwards into the ice sculpture behind us. Underneath the sculpture is a shining blue cross. If we hold the punch button, we can burrow down under the ground. This reveals reveals the first alternate exit in the game, which unlocks a new level called Funky Fungi. These new levels are in a separate galaxy called the Lost Galaxy, but we're going to return to Creamy Canyon to finish the rest of that level first. There's more ice we need to break with the pig bots, and thankfully we can reach this bot using the bouncy ladybird. No hovering required. These same ladybird bots also help us to reach a few more things as well, including Grey Fox Underground, and soon enough we've beaten Creamy Canyon 100%. Level 3 is Aztec Trail. The collectibles are the same as Creamy Canyon, 7 bots, 3 puzzle pieces and an alternate exit. This is the first time we're seeing the gimmick with finding the right panel by feeling the controller vibration. We only need to push the panels for now, but keep this gimmick in mind for later as well. Now we get to use my favourite power-up in the game, the Twin Frog Gloves. We can use these to break anything in our way. This level's alternate ending can be found by punching all 4 torches. Thankfully, we can just reach the loose wires without needing our lasers. This unlocks the level Fan Club, but just as before, we return to the level we were in to beat that first. This Twin Frog Glove spin is easily my favourite attack in the game. We can also use them to swing from ledge to ledge, and the distance we can get is good enough to not need to hover. The most challenging part of this level is the sub-area inside the monkey's mouth. Avoiding the electrified panels certainly tested me. The mid-air punches helped a lot to cover some distance. After some practice, we were able to reach the top no problem. The rest of the collectibles are mostly on the beaten path, and hovering isn't required to reach any of them. We go 3 rounds for the Russian doll in the level finale, and that's 100% completion in Aztec Trail. Level 4 is Construction Derby, plenty of platforming early on, but we can clear the gaps just fine. Did you know that if we slowly walk over the glass, it doesn't break? This level's power-up is the Barkster, or as I call it, the Rocket Dog. With this, we can thrust forward to cover wider gaps and break down certain walls. It's also used to defeat these annoying bell enemies, bounce off these spring panels, and push the sumo bots out of the ring. The invisible steps surprised me, and we need to use them to get to the top of this room. The gaps in between the platforms seem to be just too wide to cover without hovering, so it's a good thing we have our Rocket Dog. We still can't defeat the Volty enemies in this level without our lasers, which probably makes them the most dangerous enemies in the run so far. We did manage to get the sumo bot to push the Volty over the edge once though, so that's fun. We finally find our first pressure panels on the ground. The only way to trigger these is with our lasers by hovering over them. In this level, this will reward us with a puzzle piece, so unfortunately this is the first collectible we can't get in this run. But we did manage to rescue all the bots at least. The 5th level is the first boss level, Mighty Chewy, and Rocket Dog is back, which basically replaces our hover when it comes to clearing gaps. The gorilla boss itself can be played entirely casually. The only concern I had is if the boss ever spawned any Volties, but thankfully it doesn't. The finale of the first galaxy is Apes on the Loose. There are 10 ape bots in total for us to capture with our net, but none of them are out of our reach, whether we can hover or not. There are also 3 puzzle pieces to find here too, but they're all very reachable without hovering. We use a grind rail to reach the top of the giant ape statue, and this is where we rescue the final ape bot and the mothership's memory. That's 100% completion in Apes on the Loose. We are taken back to the crash site automatically, which is basically the game's hub area. There are various bots to rescue all over the crash site as well, but each one requires us to have already rescued a certain number of other bots first before we could rescue them. So after each boss, we will return to the crash site to see if we can rescue even more bots. Do know though, none of the bots in the crash site requires any hovering to reach. With the rest of the galaxy complete, we fly around to discover new hidden short levels within it, and that's how we find the first Retro Rampage level. There are several of these in the game, and they're all combat focused, so we can beat them all just fine. There is another short level though, and it's called Crumble Rumble. This is the first bot that actually requires us to use our lasers. It's intended that we use our laser feet to break the ground around the Volties, which would then drop them to their deaths. We had the idea to lure the enemies over the edge instead, but they just don't fall down. This was looking bleak, but after enough attempts we had a breakthrough. If we lure the Volties onto the clamps in the corners, it's possible to get them to fall over the edge. It doesn't always work, but after enough attempts we did manage to get all of them to fall off. And that's all we need to do to complete this level. The final short level of this galaxy is Rolling Star Solar. It's all about balance as we roll over the spikes, but hovering isn't required at all. With that, we have beaten the entire gorilla system, and the only thing we couldn't get was a single puzzle piece. The tentacle system's next, and the first level is Go Go Archipelago. The first gap can be cleared with a spin jump. Now we have to use my least favourite power-up, the Monkey Climber. We use this to climb specific walls as long as there are banana-shaped handholds holds, but we can also use the power-up to slam the ground and throw boulders. Now we must defeat the giant undead pirate bot Shadow of the Colossus style. Defeating the bot allows us to burrow underground in the corner of the arena, and down here we find the alternate ending, which unlocks the level Lightbulb Limbo. That's 100% completion in Go-Go Archipelago. The second level is Downsize Surprise. The gimmick here is that we can use a power-up, the Micro Mouse Thinker, to shrink down to the size of a mouse whenever we want. This also means we can turn back to normal size whenever we want to, which allows us to break open cages and reveal any hiding bots. Soon we find a glass pane on the floor. We're supposed to use our laser feet to break the glass, which would reveal a fan that helps us reach a high ledge. The lasers are the only way to break this glass, so we'll just have to move on without breaking it instead. We start to climb up through the inside of a clock tower while we're small. We can use the second hand on the clock face as it passes by to reach a puzzle piece floating above. Once we reach the top of the tower, we can just end the level, but since we're so high up, we can actually fall down to the ledge that we couldn't reach before. This bypasses the need to break the glass with our lasers, and here is where we find the level's alternate ending up this tree. This unlocks the level Boxel Buster. Since we already have all the collectibles in Downsize Surprise, we don't actually need to revisit this level. The game still considers it to be 100% complete. This means that bypassing the glass like we did was actually the most efficient method of beating this level after all. The third level is Trunk of Funk, a level all about climbing a giant tree, but we need to grow that tree first. Before that though, we get a hole in 1 for another puzzle piece. Okay, that's more like a hole in 12. Once we're inside the tree, we get a new power-up, the Elephant Hose Nose, which allows us to suck up any liquid on the floor and use it to create platforms. This gives us the means to cover most gaps without needing to hover. But there is one platform that's very far away. We need to get as high up as we can, replenish our liquid, and try to cover the distance from here. We can only create 3 platforms with a single full tank of liquid, so we will need all the momentum we can get. This means jumping just before we hit the edge of each platform so that we don't stop dead before our jumps, and by doing that, with jump spins, we can make it all the way. This was the widest gap in any level by far, so we won't struggle to reach any other bots or puzzle pieces in this level. Now we can find yellow liquid. This allows us to create 3 bouncy platforms for even more height. Near the end of the level, we seem to run into a dead end. We can use the bouncy platforms to reach a higher ledge, but this seems to be the end. This is because the intended way to progress is by using our lasers to crack open the eggshell beneath our feet. This would reveal a spring that sends us to the top of the tree. We wondered if we could just bring some spare liquid up here with us, but we need to use all 3 of them just to get up this far. Getting any higher from here seems pretty hopeless, but we weren't ready to give up. At the bottom, we fill up with liquid, create 3 platforms quickly, and then punch in midair to get away from the 3rd platform before we land on it. This drops us back down to the bottom. We quickly refill on liquid and use the previous 3 platforms to bounce back up before they disappear. From there, we only need to use 1 more bouncy platform to reach the ledge with the eggshell. This gives us 2 more bouncy platforms left over, but that's still nowhere near enough to get to the top. We need to take advantage of a few more things, one of which is the environment around us, but another thing is sprint speed. Sprint speed is a feature in this game where after running for a few seconds, as long as we don't slow down or take any tight turns, Astrobot will start to run faster. We maintain this increased speed even after jumping, and we carry the momentum to increase our jump height and distance ever so slightly. Now we want to reach one of the mushrooms that we can see above us. We can actually get a jump off the grassy part in the top right corner, and then 1 liquid platform can get us just high enough to land on the small mushroom beneath the bigger one. We need to do a very quick jump to reach the bigger mushroom above us before we fall off. All of that was a lot harder than it looked. It's awkward getting sprint speed on this small mushroom, but it can be done by running and jumping in circles. With that, we can use our last bouncy platform and reach this plant on the wall, which we can just stand on, and then we can reach the blue mushroom from there. We can see that the mushrooms around us seem to be perfectly placed to get us up the rest of the way, but we will still need sprint speed to reach each one, now that we have run out of liquid. As soon as we reach the top, we find ourselves in a boss fight. The problem with that is our lasers are actually required to deal damage to the boss. There's no way around it. We did all that just to run into this final roadblock, but it's still pretty cool that we can get up here. We might not be able to finish the level, but we still do have all the collectibles in the level, so that will have to do. The 4th level is Wormy Passage, and it returns the best power-up in the game. game. I never get tired of this one. Crossing the swinging section without being able to hover is a little bit awkward, but it's not too bad with the right timing. And then we get eaten by a giant worm. We need to reach the top before the rising stomach acid catches up with us, making sure to find the last bot and grab the last puzzle piece on the way. It's a challenge without being able to hover, but platforming is our speciality. This brings us to the game's second major boss, Wacko Taco, and we get to use the best power-up in the game once again. Just like with the first major boss, hovering isn't required at all during the boss fight. We don't need hang time, nor do we need to use our lasers to deal damage. The platforming section at the end was a bit treacherous, but overall it was a bit anticlimactic. So how about I show you how to skip this boss entirely? The first island at the beginning of the fight is surrounded by an invisible wall, which prevents us from just jumping out into the water. If we lose this fight on purpose, Astrobot will respawn slightly above the ground, and what's interesting about this is that the invisible wall doesn't spawn until Astrobot lands on the sand. This means that as soon as we respawn, we can use a quick hover, a spin, and a punch with our frog gloves to stay suspended in the air until we reach the water. It's unfortunate this requires a hover, but this is just an optional skip anyway, it's not part of the challenge. Now that we're out of bounds, the boss can't hurt us anymore. But if we want to skip the fight, we need to find a load trigger under the water. To find it, we swim in this direction. It's quite far, but eventually we see a grey speck in the distance, and we want to land on it. If we swim too low, we'll start to fall down, so that makes the landing quite tough. When we nail the landing, we can see that we're standing on a pedestal that usually we find at the end of each level. There is a boat lodged inside it. Touching the boat in the right spot suddenly triggers the end of the level, and that's how to skip the Octoboss. This brings us to Bot of War. This level gives us the Leviathan, a throwing axe that can turn its targets into ice. This is used to make progress various times in the level, so hovering takes a back seat until we get towards the end of the level. It looks like hovering is required to climb up this frozen waterfall. Each platform seems to be just a little bit too high up to reach with a regular jump. The solution to this is to build up sprint speed on the bigger starting platform before going for the jumps. If we can maintain speed, the extra height is just enough to get on top of each platform. That's 100% completion in Bot of War. Back in the tentacle system, we've unlocked the Lost Triangle Void, which is the first of a series of shorter levels themed around a PlayStation face button, with the first one being the triangle, of course. All of these levels are heavy on platforming, so that actually makes some of these the most challenging levels in the run. I'll show you the most difficult parts of these levels, but know that almost all of them are very challenging to beat without hovering. One of them had a lot of glass platforms and electrified panels, and as soon as we reached this part, we ran into a problem. Even with sprint speed and a spin in midair, we couldn't reach the next platform. The fact that we can't run directly over the edge of almost any platform in the game is a big hindrance, as it kills our momentum on edge jumps. But we did find a solution. We build up sprint speed, jump, and land on the very edge of our platform, and then jump again immediately. Landing on the edge like this prevents us from losing our momentum, and we can just make the jump. By comparison, none of the other Lost Triangle Void levels posed as much of an issue as that bit. As for the second Crumble Rumble level, there's no chance of beating this. The two enemies that we need to defeat don't move from their spots, so we can't lure them over the edge like we did last time. The only way to win this is by carving up the ground with our laser feet, so we'll have to skip this one. It was at this point we noticed we were missing two bots in the tentacle system. We knew about the one in Crumble Rumble 2, but we weren't sure where the other one was. It turns out there is another level in the tentacle system that hasn't spawned. That level is Retro Rampage 2. The reason it hasn't spawned is that we weren't able to defeat the bird boss at the end of Trunk of Funk, so we'll have no choice but to move on without it. Now we arrive at the third galaxy, the Serpent Starway, and the first level is called Slow-Mo Casino, named as such because we have a new power-up that allows us to temporarily slow down time. The very first spot of this level is on a high-up ledge above the casino entrance archway. It's intended that we slow down time right as these three dolphins jump out the water, and then use them as platforms to reach the ledge. The issue with that is the ledge is just out of reach after we jump from the third dolphin. Even if we can carry sprint speed across all three dolphins, we still couldn't make it up there. However, we found a solution. We swim on the water's surface in the perfect spot so the dolphin carries us up with it. It doesn't really work when we're over the dolphin's body, but it does work if we get hit by the dolphin's flipper. This can knock us up into the air and just high enough to land on the ledge with a spin. Thankfully, we can run over the edge on these seesaws, which allows us to reach the maximum distance with our jumps. I wish we could do that anywhere. This part with the 2 darts is easily the most difficult part of the level. It's not too difficult to reach the ladder where the darts hit the wall. That only took a few tries. It's reaching the ledge on the left that's the difficult part. We need to time the slow-mo perfectly. We also need sprint speed, and we need to land on the pointy bit of the blue dart since it's slightly lower. And even then, we can only just make the last jump if we jump from the back bit of the dart where it's pointing upwards. This took many attempts. The first time I made it over there, the enemy killed me immediately. This would have made me mad, but then I ended up nailing it perfectly on the very next try. So that's 100% completion in the slow-mo casino. We travel to Free Big Brother next, a level where we must break all the purple locks on the various body parts of a giant robot. There's also another alternate exit we can find right at the start of the level, and this unlocks the bonus level, Ghouls and Bots. We return to Free Big Brother. On the starting island, the platforming is kept to a minimum, but there is a breakable floor on this island that requires us to use our laser feet to break. There are 2 things underneath this floor, a puzzle piece and a spring that launches us up to another platform high up. It seems like there's no hope of getting underneath, but the Astrobot community is not so easily defeated, and they did find another way inside. First of all, as with any level in this game that is surrounded by water, if we try to swim from the level itself, a strong water current will push us back towards the level. If we could somehow swim beyond the point that triggers the current, we would be able to freely swim anywhere in the level. There happens to be a glitch in this game called Punching Jesus. If we spam the punch button, Astrobot will punch combo endlessly. If we're standing on the very edge near the seawater, it's possible that the rising tide will submerge Astrobot while he's standing still. If we spam the punch button as the tide submerges us, we stay punching on the water's surface. We can now move around on the surface of the water and travel anywhere we want. As long as we never stop punching, we don't fall in the water. We can travel beyond the trigger for the current and then fall into the water to submerge. Now we can swim around the level until we reach the part that's close to the breakable floor. As it happens, there is a gap in the rock that we can just squeeze through to get back in bounds, and this brings us directly underneath the breakable floor. We can grab the puzzle piece and even use the spring to break the floor from underneath. This brings us to a portal that leads to a small cave. There's a bot on a high ledge, and the only way up there is by bouncing on the springs that are underneath another breakable floor. Since this cave is isolated from the rest of the level, there is no surrounding water that we can use to get out of bounds. However, there is a way. Back outside the main part of the level, we can use the same trick as before to get out of bounds, but this time we swim over the very edge of the level itself. Down below, we can see the very cave that we were just inside, but from the outside, and if we swim low enough, we stop swimming. We're going to enter this cave from above. We need to make sure to find the right gap, otherwise we end up where we already were, which is no good. But from the right gap, we can just see the bot we're trying to reach, and with a very well-timed jump, we can just reach it. The rest of the level is reaching the top of the giant robot's head. The only challenging part is this bot underneath more breakable floor, but we can just jump around and spin our way underneath to reach the bot. That's 100% completion in Free Big Brother. We're in the bathhouse next. We get a power-up that turns us into a sponge. We can soak up the water and deploy it somewhere else. Another useful thing about this power-up is that when we soak up the water, we turn into a giant, which allows us to jump much further. That helps us to cross this wide gap here. Then we need to climb a tree and put out the fire in the chimney with our water. But if we want to reach the chimney ourselves, we need to jump back down to the rooftop, soak up more water, and then use our size to make the big jump again. We can now jump to the chimney, but we need to release our water before landing to fit inside the chimney. Inside, we find another alternate exit, which unlocks the level Furnace Fever. We return to the bathhouse to finish the rest of that level. We need to use more water to create a path across the lava. It's not easy, but it's still doable. That's 100% completion here too. We fly on over to Trapped in Time, a level inside a giant hourglass that's full of deadly purple sand. We get a rocket chicken power-up this time, which can be used to thrust straight into the air. This will be needed for a lot of upcoming platforming sections, but check this out. It turns out that the Punching Jesus trick also works on the purple sand. In fact, we can use this to climb all the way to the very top of the sand pile, so there is literally nowhere in this level we can't reach. We go back to the start of the level, of course, because we don't want to miss any collectibles after all. Partway through the level, we need to go inside, and we can't punching Jesus our way through this area. The vaulties rear their heads again too. The only awkward collectible to reach is under this breakable floor that's covered in gold, but it turns out that we can just fall over the edge and squeeze through the small gap on the side of the ledge. When we get back outside, the bottom part of the level is deloaded, so you know we had to punching Jesus our way down there to see what it looks like. Turns out it's a plain black surface with ice physics for some reason. Some parts of the level are still here, but not much. Anyway, the rest of this level is very trivial with our rocket chicken. That's 100% completion here. Time for the next level. There's some platforming early on, but we get the rocket chicken power up again, so it's no problem. The boss fight itself is against Lady Venomara, which is a giant snake with a drill for a tail. Like with most bosses so far, no hovering is required. It would definitely help, especially when avoiding the venom, but the rocket chicken does the job. The boss also spawns a horde of small enemies a couple of times, but none of them are vaulties. The finale is also solved with the rocket chicken. Next up is dude raiding. We get a gun in this level, so none of the enemies are an issue here. There are some rope swing sections, but we can reach the ropes with a spin jump, and if we get a full swing, we can cover any gap. We find a good example of a spin jump actually being worse than a regular jump. The spin can prevent Astrobot from grabbing the edge here, but a regular jump makes it just fine. We can even shoot the vaulties here, so we can finally kill them. The finale is kinda brutal, but we get 100% completion, so I feel better. The third Crumble Rumble is seemingly impossible. The enemies stay in the center, and we can't break this floor without our lasers. I did try out a new idea. I managed to land on one of the metal beams lower down, and then I tried to jump up through the floor to see if that would break it. This seems to work in some of the game's other levels, but sadly, it didn't work here. Now for a true challenge, the Lost Circle Void. 4 more levels with heavy emphasis on platforming. Again, I'll show the most difficult parts or the most interesting parts. One of the most frustrating parts is avoiding this enemy swinging a spike ball. Some of them swing around really fast, and they're on small platforms too. Normally, we would use our lasers to defeat the enemy from above, but if we can't do that, our only other option is to punch it twice before we get hit once. The only way we found to do this was hitting it in midair as we land, and then hit it once more as soon as we hit the ground as quick as we can. Then there's the part where we need to carry magnets to remove the metal spikes from our path. The issue with this is that when we're carrying an object like this, we can't spin jump, because the punch spin button is the same button to throw whatever we're holding. Avoiding the spikes on the glass is also quite difficult. Something else I'm not a fan of, Astrobot jumps automatically when he reaches the end of a grind rail, and since I'm not expecting it, sometimes I press the jump button to make the jump, which makes him hover instead because I'm already in the air. We did manage to beat all 4 levels in the Lost Circle Void though. The next level is the Hieroglyph Pyramid. It looks like a super short level, but then it dupes us by collapsing a bridge. But did you know you can actually skip the trigger that causes this bridge to collapse? You need to go around the trigger like this. It's a shame that it requires a hover, but even if we were able to use this, we would miss out on all the collectibles. Almost the entire level is played with the power-up that lets us turn into a small metal ball, and the level is also built around that. Long story short, no hovering is required to get through this level, nor is it required to reach any collectible. There is an alternate exit in this level, but we need to jump on the normal exit first to get duped again. At the bottom of the slope, we can find the alternate exit which leads to the level Rocket Pull Power. We don't even need to return to Hieroglyph Pyramid since we already found everything in that level. So we'll go to Bubbling Under instead. The vast majority of this level is underwater, which is why we get a penguin power-up to swim faster. The level is wide open to fully explore at the end. We decided to head right for the first puzzle piece that we see. It's inside a giant bubble. Once we're inside the bubble, we can no longer swim, but the puzzle piece is on top of a breakable floor, and without our lasers, it doesn't look like we're getting down there. This is the only part of the level that has a collectible that's not underwater. But what's confusing about this is that we were able to collect every bot and every puzzle piece in this level. There is also no alternate exit in this level either. So what could possibly be underneath that breakable floor? I have no idea, but I wanted to find out. Just before the open water section, there is this enemy that shoots fire at us, but this enemy also runs towards us between flame shots. If we stand in this corner, the enemy will squash us into the corner, and if we jump while this is happening, we can get clipped right through the ground. We land in water, and now we can swim out of bounds. The plan is, of course, to see if we can swim under the platform with the breakable floor, except when we get there, all that happens is that we get trapped underneath. So we still can't find out what's inside. I suppose it will have to remain a mystery, and we'll move on. Next up is Balloon Breeze. A lot of the gaps are covered with the inflatable octopus power-up, but early on we run into an issue. This level has an alternate exit, and it's found near the beginning of the level, but it's required that we use our lasers to activate it. There's no way around this. This means there is an entire optional level we can't unlock. We also found some more of these logs. This time we have to cut them with our lasers to get a puzzle piece. We tried to use the enemy's attacks to break them, but it's no use. So that's another thing we can't get in this level. Thankfully though, we can get everything else. Right at the end, a giant robot blows a gust of wind at us to send us to the end of the level. But did you know that if you're quick enough, you can actually get on top of the robot itself? There's nothing to do once we're up here, but we can still do it. Anyway, we can get all 7 bots and 2 out of 3 puzzle pieces. Now we enter spooky time. Once again, we can slow down time, and it's used a lot. We also need to blow out the candles while the Volties chase us around, and sprint speed comes into play once again to help us cross this gap. Now we need to carry light bulbs to reveal the invisible platforms. As we've mentioned, this prevents us from spin jumping, since we'll end up throwing the light bulb away instead. The platforming is fairly tight throughout the level, but hovering is never needed at any point. It certainly would have helped with the final section where we jump over the spinning debris in slow motion to reach the puzzle piece, but regardless of that, we can still do this. That is 100% completion in spooky time. The next level is the next boss. We get the slow-mo power-up here too. The boss is called Mecha Leon. We can use slow-mo to avoid his fire without needing to hover, but the biggest issue with this boss is the fact that he spawns Volties. What's more, the boss won't move onto the next phase until we have defeated them all. It's also impossible to fall over the edge of this platform. It's completely surrounded by an invisible barrier. Thankfully, the boss breaks a hole in the arena floor with rockets, so that does give us a hole to try and lure the Volties into. Just like with Crumble Rumble, they are very stubborn and they refuse to fall in. We can get them to push each other in sometimes, but the last one needs to be lured by jumping over the hole in front of him. There is one last Voltie on the final platform, but this one is much easier to lure over the edge. The next level, Going Loco, is a pure gimmick level with no possible way to hover anyway, so it stands to reason we'd get 100% completion there. After the game returns us to the crash site, we were rescuing a few more bots before returning to the main levels, and one of these bots sees us fall down inside a small cave of lava. We can rescue the bot down here just fine, but to get back out again, we need to use our lasers to break the glass panel on the floor. There's no other way of getting back out of this cave manually, so it looks like we're stuck down here. However, if we pause the game at the crash site, we have the option to fast travel directly to space, and then after that we can just return directly to the crash site and carry on. The 4th Crumble Rumble level can actually be beaten. The enemies end up breaking the ground by themselves this time. It's awkward to survive long enough, but we get it eventually. It's time for the Lost Square Void, and these levels don't get any easier. In fact, this might be the most difficult one so far. We're either manually controlling fans, or we lose our spin jumps because we need to carry another light bulb to reveal more invisible platforms. The one part where we run up the walls is actually quite easy. It only took me 2 attempts, but the 4th and final level in the Lost Square Void was agony. We have to hold rubber ducks to thaw the lava, and avoid the oil to prevent being slowed down. If we don't maintain sprint speed, we likely won't make several of these jumps. There are so many things that kill you in this level, and you can rarely afford to slow down. At the end, there's a duck surrounded by fire. We can grab it if we time the landing, but with the duck in our hands, we can no longer spin jump to reach the next platform. But we also need the duck to remove the lava enemies ahead of us. We solve this by throwing the duck immediately towards the enemies and then quickly spin jumping to reach the platform. The beginning of the next level, Ginny of the Lamp, is like a desert town with a few bots to rescue, but the only one that's annoying for us is the one surrounded by Volties. The second half of the level takes place inside a sand tornado, and it isn't long until we find the Rocket Dog power-up. Once again, this helps us to circumnavigate the need to hover. We can even reach this awkward bot stuck on the top of a parasol. I always miss the bot stuck on top of the big propeller whenever I play this level, but not this time. The level ends with a mini-boss against Ginny himself. He does spawn Volties to chase us during the fight, but he also wipes out the Volties himself with his own projectiles. Once he's defeated, we can just leave the level, but this is also where we find the alternate exit. We have to Rocket Dog our way across the invisible platforms. And on the other side, we ride a magic carpet which takes us to the alternate exit, and this unlocks the level High Suction Hero. Thankfully, we don't need to return to Ginny of the Lamp since we already had 100% completion there. We'll head to the next level instead, Frozen Meal. The platforming here is made more challenging either due to the Crocobots or because of the ice physics. We can defeat these Volties without our lasers since the icy floor they're standing on breaks away as we skate over it. There is one high up ledge that we can't reach. The idea is to roll this snowball through the snow to make it bigger. Then we can stand on it to reach the upper ledge. But we also have to do this whilst being chased by Volties. Another problem is once the snowball is as big as it needs to be, we can no longer get on top of it without hovering. The solution is to stand on top of the snowball before it gets too big and let the Volties push the snowball towards the ledge we need to reach. I pulled this off surprisingly quick. This led us to another alternate exit, which unlocks the level Turtles in Trash. But we need to return to Frozen Meal first. We had to play the whole level all over again just to reach its finale, and that finale is a mini boss fight against a giant snowman. Thankfully, we drill into its head with a spin attack instead of our laser feet, so that's 100% completion here. Lunar Solar is up next. There's not too much to say about the early parts of the level. There is platforming, but none of it requires hovering. There are a few Volties that we need to deal with, but we can just throw these light bulbs at them. We can get almost every collectible on this level without issue. I missed the last puzzle piece here for a while, but I did find it eventually. The only thing we can't get is the last bot, because we need to use our laser feet to activate another floor panel. This means we're just one single bot short on this level. Next up is Cannon Brawl. There's a sketchy jump early on, but it's just possible, and this gets us the steel ball power up. We can turn into a metal ball to become almost invincible. The mini volcanoes help us to clear the wider gaps in this level since the whole place is built around using them. There is a mini boss at the end, and it does require a bit of platforming, but nothing too demanding. That was a fairly easy 100% completion. Orbital Blitz is up next, and right at the start of the level, we can backtrack over these small floating platforms for some extra coins. It's a bit difficult without hovering, and I thought it was pretty cool the devs actually hid some coins back here to reward exploration. There is a bot that's difficult to reach without the extra height from a hover. It's just a bit too high up. After a few failed attempts, we notice that the floating rock hovers up and down ever so slightly. If we time it perfectly, we can just reach the rock when it's as low as it can go. It was only after we did that we realized that we got a rocket chicken power-up right afterwards, which would have made reaching that bot much easier. There is actually some challenging platforming on this level, if we're not using our lasers that is. Sprint speed comes to our rescue several times here too. I really like that you can just use the rocket chicken to escape the level and explore it from above. There's not much more to say though. The rocket chicken sees us through the rest of the level and even the mini boss at the end. That's 100% completion here. The boss level in this galaxy gives us the steel ball power up again, and as usual the boss itself is very short and simple. The boss fight is against Falcon McFly, and it might be my favourite boss in the entire game. There's no hovering required though, it's just fun. It spawns enemies but none of them are Volties, thankfully. It's very lucky that none of the game's mandatory bosses require us to use our lasers, especially considering there was an optional mini-boss that does require our lasers. In the Horizon-themed level, Machine Learning, we get a bow and arrow, so even the Volties aren't safe from us now. This is the puzzle piece I usually miss here. We need to shoot something way off into the distance. Nothing to do with hoverless, I've just had to backtrack a lot to find this before. There's nothing in this level we can't handle, and it's capped off with a giant metal T-Rex, so that makes this the best level by default. That's 100% completion here. Defeating this boss sends us directly into the final boss sequence automatically. At one point during the fight section, we need to defeat some enemies that are on top of a PS3. easy, but none of them are Volties. Even the final boss of the game, Nebulax, doesn't require any laser attacks to beat it. It's all about using the game's various power-ups instead. If we get a skull on the roulette wheel, then he does force us to fight a bunch of normal enemies. I only hit this once, so I don't know if repeatedly hitting it spawns Volties or not, but I'm happy to not find out. The credits section is basically a victory lap, still no hovers required here. Some of the jumps are a bit tight, but they're not that hard. There's plenty of game left to play though. Beating Nebulax unlocks 2 new galaxies, and even a Christmas level, but first we head back to the Feather Cluster to finish off the bonus levels there. We start with the 5th Crumble Rumble level. There's a volcano in the center this time, and we can use it to break the floor for us. We need to lure the rocks towards where we want them to land without being hit by them ourselves. We accomplish this by mostly staying on the outer edge, but the enemies can still catch you by surprise sometimes. This plan does work eventually though. Next up is Ginny's Revenge, which sees the return of a mini-boss, only as a full-fledged boss fight this time. A major difference being that unlike the other big boss fights, we can't take extra hits. Once again, he spawns Volties, as well as many other types of enemies. The bell attacks are annoying to dodge without hovering, and since we go down in a single hit, we lost this fight quite a few times. But we do have the Rocket Dog power up, so as long as we remember to use this to dodge projectiles, we get through this eventually. It's the Lost Cross Void that I've been dreading. These are always a challenge, and the Cross Void might be the most difficult of the lot. The first tip that really helped me out is the fact that we can safely land on this light next to the electrified floor. This helps us to make this bounce more consistently without dying. The moving cubes with the enemy stuck on one side is very frustrating and requires precise timing, but the swinging enemy right after it is even more annoying. Then there's the bird cannons we need to avoid too. These require us to remember the firing patterns. Then there's the part where we slow down time temporarily. The key to beating this is to maintain sprint speed for as long as we can. This will help us to ensure that we can jump and spin over the moving electric mines. If we ever lose sprint speed but we're safe on a platform, we build up sprint speed again by running in circles before we commit to tackling the next obstacle. I can't believe this, but I actually pulled off the icy electric part first try. I can't explain it. And then I nailed the icy bird cannon part on my second try. So maybe I played the hardest parts of the Cross Void first for some reason. With all that done, we decided to tackle the Vicious Void next. It's a series of short but challenging levels, with the reward being a single bot at the end of each one. We also use a different power-up in each one. High Inflation uses the inflatable power, and it might be the easiest level in the Vicious Void. Tick-Tock Shock is all about slowing down time during perilous platforming. Sprint speed really helps here too. This mechanic is the unsung hero of the whole run for sure. Trust or Bust is genuinely very difficult without hovering, or it was for me at least. We get the Rocket Dog power up throughout the level, but considering we spend most of the time over bottomless pits, any mistake usually results in a restart. A bit of patience at the end goes a long way when waiting for the right cycle with these balls. Speaking of cycles, we've got spike traps to avoid next in Cockadoodle Doom, but at least we get a rocket chicken to help us do just that. Although that doesn't help with my depth perception towards the end, but once we're past that, the rest of the level is easy. The next one is hard to bear, and to my surprise, we actually managed to pull this one off first try. The idea is we use the symbols to move the platforms as we go. It's a decent challenge and it constantly keeps me on my toes. I cannot say the same for the next level, Armored Hardcore. I was on this level for ages and I hate it. It uses the Steel Ball power-up. If we could hover, we could skip by the enemies at the start, but with some patience we can still get by them. This is the hard part, getting across this gap. We need to turn into a ball as we land on the spring platforms, but without hovering, clearing the gaps is very hard. Not to mention that the platforms move and there are flamethrowers either side of the second spring. The only way we found to get by this is to land on the very corner of this brazier, but without actually touching the fire, which was harder than it looked. We play the rest of the level very slowly and very carefully. I really didn't want to have to replay this. Twin Frog Trouble is next. It's typical recall that my favourite power-up is required for one of the hardest levels in the Vicious Void. Once again, sprint speed is very important, but there's another trick we can use. With the Twin Frog power-up, we can punch with each arm separately with each trigger. In midair, if we press a trigger to punch, and then square to spin, and then the other trigger to punch with the other arm, we can stay suspended in the air for quite a while. This is the key to clearing the wider gaps in the level. The spring only barely gets us onto the platform if we don't hover too. It's the spinning flaming pole that really sucks though. We can swing back and forth until we see an opening in the spinning flames. We died here a lot, and just when I was about to give up, we managed to land on top of the pole. This is exactly what we needed, and we make it to the end of the level from here just fine. Suck it up as another annoying one. It's all based around creating your own bouncy platforms as we go. Just like before, we only get 3 platforms each time we suck up some honey, so we need to use them as efficiently as we can to remove the need for hovers. Performing a spin between each platform that we create helps us to get more distance too. Towards the end of the level, we create icy slopes instead of honey, and these allow us to cover crazy distances, which makes the end even easier than the beginning. I've saved the worst one for last. This level is called Handhold Havoc, and it uses the worst power-up too. Sprint speed helps us out a little bit here, but it's mostly just traversing the climbing walls, and I died here more times than I care to admit. I was very happy when this one was finally over. Completing all 9 levels in the Vicious Void unlocks a 10th level called Mega Mix Mastery. It's the longest level in the Vicious Void, and it utilizes multiple different power-ups back to back. One wrong move and we're forced to restart the entire level all over again. It's definitely challenging without the insurance of being able to hover, and I died here more times than any other level in the Vicious Void. It all came down to repetition and trial and error. The level's so long, and this is about all we could do to get better. I kept thinking the level would end soon, but the end just never seemed to be in sight. I have no idea how I didn't die to the electricity here, but I'm not complaining, and we finally made it to the end. We play the speedrun levels next. There are 5 of them in total, each with 2 bots to rescue. All we need to do is reach the end of the level, but there are 2 birds racing us to the end of each speedrun level. If we beat the slower bird, we rescue a bot, but if we can beat the faster bird, we rescue both bots. The rocket dog level is simple enough, and the icy levels allow us to create slopes, which we can use for shortcuts. There is actually a spring underneath a glass floor in this level, but the slopes allow us to skip right on by it. We nailed the Twin Frog glove level first time. There was one single swing at the very end we nearly missed, but other than that, this level wasn't that difficult. The inflating level is a bit more difficult to do fast, but that's mostly due to me not being very good at the inflation levels. This was the first one I finished too slow and I had to redo the level, but the last speedrun level is the worst by far. Surprise, surprise, it's another monkey climbing level. I hate it when I can see the bird getting ahead of me. It puts the pressure on, and then I make mistakes. No one's happier than me that the speedrun levels are over. We head to the Christmas level next, Winter Wonder. There are 15 presents to find here, and there are multiple different power-ups that we can switch between to help us find them all. Right away, we see that it's required to use our lasers to activate this circular panel, just like in Balloon Breeze. Without this, we can't access the Monkey Climber power-up. Thankfully, this is the only power-up in the level we can't access, so we can still use all the other power-ups to reach all the other collectibles. There is a pane of glass on the floor, but instead of needing our lasers to break it, we can use the Symbols power-up to break it wide open. This gives us access to the Rocket Chicken power-up, and using this we can skip the need for the Monkey Climber power-up by launching straight up to the roof where we're supposed to climb to. Except once we get up there, we realize we still need the Monkey power-up to stomp the ground, or we can't release the present from under the snow. There's also another floor panel that requires our lasers to activate, so that's 2 collectibles we can't get here. We're only one single bot short though, so that suggests one of the presents is just a cosmetic or something, because there are no puzzle pieces here. It's finally time to play the levels in the Lost Galaxy. The first one we're playing is called Fan Club. These are optional levels that we've been unlocking with each alternate exit we find in the main levels. They each have their own bots and puzzle pieces too. This is also where we realise that the game keeps our Santa outfit on after we leave Winter Wonder. There are a couple of Volties here, we tried to squash them between the fans, but it doesn't work, so we just ignore them. There's a big jump we need to make, but it's nothing that sprint speed and a spin jump can't handle. That's 100% completion here. The next one is Funky Fungi, but it isn't long until we're required to use our laser feet again on these floor panels. This is for a puzzle piece that seems to be out of our reach, but this made me wonder if the puzzle piece is still loaded down there. Well, if we start the level over, we can use this flying enemy up top to push us through the ground, similar to Bubbling Under. From here, we can jump down and land on the surface of the water above the cave with the floor panels. Now we can swim around down here. The plan was to use the swim in air to reach the puzzle piece from underneath, but unfortunately all sides of the walls are solid. We can't swim too low either since we'll hit a death plane, so the only real use for this swim in air glitch is to grab the coins on top of the fungi, as they might have been a struggle to reach otherwise. If we trigger a checkpoint while swimming in air, then even dying won't stop the glitch. Since we're stuck swimming, we can't get out of the cave now, so if we want to progress, we must restart the level. We later managed to land in the water from out of bounds without getting trapped inside the cave, and without being eaten by a robot fish. Unfortunately, doing this only seems to load in a single mushroom, and the rest of the level deloads all around us. It was eventually proven that the puzzle piece doesn't even spawn in until you trigger the floor panel, but I had fun seeing the level from a new angle. The rest of the level can be beaten just fine, mostly thanks to these flowers that we can use to carry us really high up. So that leaves just a single puzzle piece that we can't get here. Then we have another level where we can carry light bulbs to reveal invisible platforms. As usual, this means we can't spin in mid-air for the extra hang time, since that makes us throw the light bulb instead. A couple of these jumps seem impossible without either spinning or hovering, so we threw the light bulb ahead to reveal the invisible platforms, and then we spin jump our way over them while they were invisible. We had to get sprint speed to make the jumps at the end, but with that we have 100% completion here. Boxel Bust Up looks just like a bigger retro Rampage level. We also get the Rocket Dog power up here, so there's nothing here we can't reach. I did almost forget to break through this window the first time though, but that's 100% completion here. Furnace Fever is a bit less simple. We need sprint speed to reach this puzzle piece. The section where we hold the rubber duck spraying water over the lava was tough without the spin jump, but we can still get 100% completion here. Ghouls and Bots gives us even more invisible platforms and light bulbs. There is a horrible jump in this level. It's very far and we need to land on an invisible platform. For some reason, very specific parts of the edge here can just be walked over and other parts can't be. If we throw a light bulb, we can see how wide this gap is. Even with sprint speed and our best jump, we can only just grab on the edge. That's the only hard part of this level though, so that's 100% completion. Rocket Pool Power gives us the Rocket Chicken, the answer to all our problems. Almost anyway. We did accidentally drop a Volty on top of a puzzle piece that we needed, but thankfully we can just grab it without dying. There are these two boxes under a metal grate, and it seems like we can only break them with our lasers, and nothing else. But since these only contain coins, we don't actually need to do this. The Rocket Chicken solves everything else, so that's 100% completion here. High Suction Hero is next. We have the elephant power up again, but this time we create solid concrete platforms. Early on, there's a puzzle piece hidden above us. We can only reach it if we start on top of the short wall to the side. The bouncy honey platforms and the icy sloped platforms can be created later on. In fact, we can even choose which one we want to use eventually. But the icy platforms were always going to win out. That's 100% completion once again. And this is where our streak of 100% completion comes to an end. The next level, Turtles in Trash, starts off just fine. We clean up the trash to advance, but we soon come to an island with a spring underneath a glass panel. If we don't use our laser feet to break this glass, we can't use the spring, and without that, we can't reach the next island. We tried to swim around the island, but a current pushes us back if we swim too far. So we traveled over the water's surface instead using the punching Jesus trick. But as soon as we get too close to the next island, we get eaten by a a robofish. We can't even submerge under this body of water for some reason. We tried to swim out as far as the game would allow, which was extremely far, in the hopes that we could fall out of bounds and move back under the water, but this still doesn't allow us to submerge. We had another idea. When we defeat all the enemies on the island that we're on, and clear away all the oil, a couple of palm trees sprout up from the ground instantly. We figured we would be able to stand on top of where the tree sprouts from, and then the tree might bounce us upwards like the dolphins did before. But no matter how many times I tried, it just would not work. We did discover something odd though. If we punching Jesus our way over to the giant turtle bot, nothing happens, but if we were to die afterwards, we respawn inside the giant turtle's head. It turns out there is an invisible checkpoint inside its head. I assume this turtle will swim into the main part of the level later if we could progress further, and then the checkpoint would become visible, but I'm not sure. This doesn't help us now though. We were able to grab both puzzle pieces, but we were only able to reach 3 out of 5 bots. This seems to be the absolute limit of what can be done in Astrobot without using our laser feet to hover. We have 310 out of 328 bots, and 113 out of 120 puzzle pieces. There was only one alternate exit out of 10 that we couldn't access, which means there is one level in the Lost Galaxy we were never able to unlock. There's also another bonus level called Final Encore that's unlocked after beating all the Lost Galaxy levels, and we can't play that either. In fact, there's another level that's unlocked after collecting all the puzzle pieces too. If we want to see the rest of the game, we have no choice but to turn this into a minimum hover challenge. So, let's go back to all the levels we couldn't complete. Construction Derby has our first floor panel. We hover over the correct square to reveal the puzzle piece. Next up is the mini-boss at the end of Trunk of Funk, and we need 3 hovers to defeat it, 1 to break each eggshell. Defeating this boss doesn't reward us with anything directly, but once it is defeated, the level Retro Rampage 2 spawns, which can then be beaten easily for another bot. Crumble Rumble 2 can be beaten in just 2 hovers. It's easier said than done though. If we're too far away, we can't complete the circle. If we're too close, we get burned. We also need sprint speed before performing each hover, or we can't complete the full circle around each enemy. Crumble Rumble 3 requires 4 hovers. Even with sprint speed, each hover only covers a quarter of the big circle in the center. We make sure to dodge the shockwaves between each hover and make sure to land on solid ground after the 4th hover. This brings us back to Balloon Breeze and this log that we need to cut. Thankfully, we can cut it in a single hover for the puzzle piece. And then there's the circular floor panel that we need to activate with our lasers to reveal the alternate exit. We need to use our lasers to light up the outside of the panel. The bigger the panel, the harder it is to do in a single hover. However, the way we find this panel is by cutting down the bamboo all around it. We cut the bamboo in such a way where we can reach the top of it with our inflation power-up. The reason for this is so we can start our hover from as high up as possible, because the lasers from our feet continue to shoot out for as long as we stay airborne. This extra height gives us enough time to complete the full circle, and this unlocks the level Danger Dojo. Before we head there though, we return to Lunar Solar to activate the floor panel there. This leads us to a separate part of the level, including the final bot of the level. We head back to Winter Wonder. There's another floor panel here, so that is another hover. Now for the other circular floor panel. We tried the same idea as last time, but unfortunately this panel seals itself up if we get too far away. Even just being on this roof is still too far away, so that makes our previous strategy useless. Thankfully, we don't need to be super accurate with our lasers when hovering over this panel, and with a tight enough circle, we can activate this in a single hover from the ground. This gives us the monkey power-up, which allows us to reveal the present under the snow, which gives us all the cosmetics in the level. Normally, we wouldn't need any cosmetics to boost our completion percentage, but we do need to open all 14 presents in this level to reveal the final bot of the level. Now we can revisit Funky Fungi to trigger the floor panel there for another puzzle piece. We can finally play the level we weren't able to unlock before, Danger Dojo. The first challenge is reaching this bot. A hover would have made this easy, but there's something we can do. When shooting the shurikens from the DualSense, we make sure to cut the bamboo sticks in such a way that creates a staircase. We can then use the bamboo sticks to platform our way around to the bot. The next challenge, which looks a lot more daunting, is this breakable floor with 2 volties on it. It's intended that we use our lasers to break the floor to reveal another DualSense underneath. And at first, it looks like there's no way of getting this without hovering. But while we were running around just punching the air in frustration, we noticed that somehow we broke a bit of the floor. It turns out that if we stand on the edge of the breakable floor and not on it, our punches can break the floor. This allows us to release the DualSense underneath, but the volties are still there. And if we try to use the DualSense, they will still get us. We need to find a way to get rid of the volties without our lasers. We can't lure them in front of the DualSense, so we can't shoot them. We try to lure them over the edge, but they simply don't travel that far. But then we discovered when it comes to aggroing the volties, it's not just about proximity. It turns out we can aggro the volties by just being slightly higher up too. All we have to do is push these lanterns into position and stand on them. The volties will run at us, and sometimes they get stuck on the lanterns for a few seconds. We need to use that time to quickly use the DualSense to shoot a shuriken or two, and then we quickly get back off again before a voltie can get us. Repeat this process a few times and we eventually fire all the shurikens we need to climb up to the upper floor. We still need to use sprint speed and the lanterns to reach the lowest shuriken, but the fact that we managed to get by this whole section without hovering once was amazing, only to find a floor panel right afterwards, which, when activated, then reveals another floor panel, which then reveals a third floor panel. This feels like a sick joke after what we just pulled off, but I suppose that's 3 more hovers to the count. That's 100% completion in Danger Dojo. We return to Turtles in Trash to use a single hover and break the glass panel. Turns out inside was another DualSense. Using this, we can finally reach the next island. There's a bot on top of the sand DualSense. The game wants us to hover over to the left analog stick, but we can just jump up the face buttons instead to reach the top. A turtle did swim into the level, but there's no checkpoint on its head. Whatever, that's 100% completion in Turtles in Trash. Beating all the Lost Galaxy levels unlocks another level, the final encore. It's all themed around the symbols power-up, and it's a decent challenge. Not a single hover is needed at any point though, but this does make the platforming more awkward. Getting all the puzzle pieces here gives us all 120 of them, which also unlocks the game's final level. It's reachable from the crash site, and it also requires 300 bots to access. We have 327 bots now though, so that's no problem. The final level is called the Grandmaster Challenge. It's yet another long level that barely gives us any time to stop, and dying means starting the level all over again. It kinda feels like one final Lost Void level. There's a swinging spike ball enemy early on, but it turns out if we wait on this spring for a while, the nearby bell enemies will kill the spike ball enemy for us. With sprint speed built up, we can skip right over the platform with a voltie on it, but then we run into our next hurdle. No matter how hard we try, we simply cannot reach the ice platform after the wall jump section. If we run up the wall too high, the flames kill us, and this limits our height and distance too much. I was making attempts at this for a good while. We can clear the flames, we just can't reach the ice, and I'm not even sure Astrobot can grab on the edge of ice platforms. However, the Astrobot community came through for me once again. It turns out that if we jump away from a wall during a wall run, as long as we don't spin in midair, Astrobot will start running on the next wall that he touches, regardless of whereabouts he hits it. We can use this to run on the side of the wall, but only just, and this allows us to reach the ledge on the other side. This was far more difficult than it sounds, and it took me over 30 minutes of practice to finally start getting it consistently. From here, we need to jump up these pipes to reach the top. This still isn't easy though, as only certain parts of the pipes can be jumped from, but when we finally get it, we can jump from here down to the icy platform that we couldn't reach, and continue the level. From there, we need to avoid the flames, the electricity, the purple enemies, more spike ball enemies, and flying birds. It's all very annoying, but it's all very doable. I must have really been in the zone at the end, because I nailed the finale of this level the first time I ever got there. I suppose it's all in the mind. So, can we beat Astrobot without hovering? Yes, we can, and with the vast majority of the collectibles too. But wait, what about that breakable floor in Bubbling Under? We have 100% completion in the entire game, and we never saw what was down there. Well, I say it's time we finally find out. And it's a spring. It's just a spring. Well, I'm not counting that hover to the total. So, if we want 100% completion, we had to perform 20 hovers minimum. If anyone has any ideas how we can reduce this number, please let me know in the comments. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go around hitting every single bot in the crash site. Thank you for watching. If you like challenge runs like this, then please subscribe, because there are plenty more on the way. I need to thank a couple of people from the Astrobot speedrun community, Pico and Moxie. They taught me all the wild strats that we used in this run. As always, I also need to thank our top supporters. If you want your name on this list, and videos early, and exclusive commentary videos, then either become a YouTube member or a Patreon. If you want to see more platformer challenge runs, we have videos on Jak and Daxter and Ratchet & Clank. We also have challenge run videos on Croc and Rayman too, but I don't think we can fit that many links on screen. Man, what a weird first playthrough that was. I gotta stop doing that.